Tēnā koutou katoa, no Ingarangi, no Czech Republic o Tipona, no reira. Ko Bledisloe te maunga, ko Waitangi te awa, ko Pakiha te iwi, I whānau mai a hau I kawakawa, engare ke te pōneke a hau noho ana. Ko Lindawa rawa ko Pemberton o ku whānau, ko Tim rawa ko Louise tōku mātua, ko Georgia tako ingoa, ko Wellington Branch Chair a hau. Whatu ngā rongorongo, te tangata, toi tū te whenua, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Georgia Grant. I hail from the Bay of Islands. I'm a climate scientist of the past and chair of the Wellington branch of the New Zealand Antarctic Society. I wanted to formally greet and welcome you tonight in Te Reo, to acknowledge and celebrate as a white New Zealander those who came before us, which is also something we love to do as Antarcticans, to give thanks to those who paved the way for us forward. I will now formally open the evening with a karakia or prayer. The words are in the comments, so please follow along with me. It's a great time to practice because no one can hear you at home. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aka ana te ata kura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land. Let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. Thank you. I hope a few of you joined along with me at home. In my mihi or greeting, I referenced a whakatau or Māori proverb, as man disappears from sight, the land remains. It seems particularly apt for the work we do in Antarctica. There is no better place to see the truth of that statement. As we reflect on the year that has been, the current crisis that faces the world, it seems a small thing to mark the midwinter and celebrate the coming longer days. But hope springs eternal, and it is a great opportunity to commend the efforts and collaboration of Antarctic Treaty signatories for the preservation of peace and science in Antarctica. And I hope it acts as an example and encourages the world to come together as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Words from Scott during their midwinter dinner in 1902 reminds us of the history of midwinter. At 6, we had our dinner in the wardroom, with the table decorated and the display of all our plate. Starting with turtle soup, we passed on to a generous helping of mutton, and from that to plum pudding, mince pies and jellies, all washed down with an excellent dry champagne. With a largely assorted dessert of crystallized fruits, almonds, raisins and nuts came the port and liqueurs, which brought us into good form. With such a dinner, we agreed that life in the Antarctic regions was worth living. So while we can't have champagne, let me introduce the evening, which is obviously a little different to normal, and I look forward to returning to normal next year. But I do hope we have some members from afar that often miss out on these events. Tonight, rather, the appetizer consists of the first of 4 traditional toasts, with the rest to follow as side dishes throughout the evening. This will be followed by the first course, where we will hear from Sarah Williamson, the CE of Antarctica New Zealand. For the main course, we will hear from the Italian, Australian and American ambassadors. And the final course consists of hearing from Scott-based Winter Over manager Rory O'Connor. And dessert will be the Q&A session with Rory. So please ask any questions for Rory via the YouTube comments at any point in the night. And lastly, please feel free to raise a glass during the toasts. I should also note that for non-members, feel free to head over to the Antarctic Society website at antarcticsociety.org.nz. And please sign up. You'll receive the recent Antarctic magazine and a new wall map of Antarctica in partnership with LINS, the first update in 25 years. The membership also gives you access to archived issues of Antarctica, and you'll be the first to receive updates on events around the country. So I was meant to hand over to Peter Barrett for an intro for the first toast, but unfortunately he couldn't make it tonight, so I'll just continue with a short mention of the Wellington branch. I became chair late last year and have been lucky to be involved with many of the events, including a photo exhibition, the open school day at Miramar Primary School, the new Wellington Trail Day, and a number of different talks. In facing the lockdown, the branch very much wanted to continue providing food for thought to the membership, and alongside the other branches, we produced the webinar series, which are available on the YouTube channel if you haven't already checked them out. We're hoping to provide a physical talk next month about rat eradication on South Georgia Island, but we do aim to provide the talks online now that we have the YouTube channel. We'll be hearing from the other branch members as they announce the toasts throughout the evening. So for kind of other people from different areas in New Zealand, keep online and hopefully you'll be hearing about some new things that the other branches are doing. I will now hand over to Krause, who is calling in for the first toast.
Yes, thanks Georgia. Hopefully you can all hear me. So taking over from Peter Barrett this year, which is a bit of an honour almost. So each year it's been tradition to raise a glass as part of the Loyal Toast. It's a tradition that goes back many years to both for Antarcticans to Scots Days, but also for other government bodies and so forth around the globe, raising a toast to their official head of state, which for us in this case would be the Queen. So without much further ado, please do raise your glasses for a toast to the Queen.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. Okay, it seems as though there's been a slight glitch with the YouTube link that Gracie has remedied. So hopefully we have everybody back on with us. And Sarah, yeah, if you're ready. I will now hear from Sarah Williamson, the CEO of Antarctica New Zealand, about some of the going-ons down there this year.
Kia ora everybody, and thank you for inviting me along to the Midwinter celebration. This is one of many midwinter celebrations. It's a really important piece of the Antarctic calendar, so as well as celebrating in Antarctica, we've been celebrating in Christchurch, which is wonderful. Antarctica is incredibly important to New Zealand, and the Ross Sea region is on our southern flank and is strategically important to New Zealand as well. We've been in Antarctica on that site since 1957 and have a very long relationship working with our US colleagues just 3 kilometres away. And our view is that the Antarctic Treaty System is a great way to maintain Antarctica for peace purposes and for science. And we have lots of other friends in the Ross Sea region that we work really closely with. So it's a kind of wonderful thing to be a part of. The treaty is quite remarkable, and it's remarkable in many ways. One of them is that apparently it's an incredibly short document, which is not surprisingly. But the other thing that is quite remarkable about it is that it sets the basis for this ethos of friendship and open sharing. And that means that almost all of the parties that are based down in Antarctica share not only the things that are going really well, but also the things that aren't going well and the lessons that can be learned. So this wonderful platform from the treaty pushes us into this really nice ethos of being open and sharing almost everything we can share, including science data, and science information. So collaborative science is just something that happens out of that kind of treaty platform. The Antarctic New Zealand has 3 principles that we are working towards. The first one is to manage the activities on the Antarctic continent. The second is to ensure that we enhance the quality of science. And the third is to coordinate and work with other institutions, both within New Zealand and outside of New Zealand, that kind of have similar goals to ourselves. And I guess the best example of how this is working at the moment and the open sharing of information and how we're kind of working together to make sure we do the right thing for the Antarctic continent is in the COVID situation. So right at the moment, as you will know, Antarctica is completely COVID-free, and all of the different nations and polar programs are working hard to make sure that it gets maintained that way. And for us, the 2 ways to mitigate that risk are firstly to be careful who you send down south. So the more people that you move south, the greater the risk of someone taking something COVID-wise down there. And you're also taking people out of an environment where they have ready access to medical help into an environment where they have very little access to medical help. So the first thing we want to do is to make sure that we limit the number of people that are on the continent itself. And the second way is to make sure that we have a really good regime for testing and for monitoring them before they go down, and also for spending some time and kind of managed isolation beforehand, so that we can be as confident as we can that when those people travel south, they're travelling south in a really healthy way. So the same ethos is applied to all of the programs, and I think we have announced recently, and many have announced, that they're running a very skinny season this year. So for us, that means our orientation is around maintenance. We need to make sure that Scott Base continues to tick along, and it's a collection of 12 buildings that are in various states of repair, so they do need continued and ongoing maintenance. We send an operational team south. The summer season is the season when we can get lots of things underway that we can't get underway when it's very cold in the middle of winter. So we have an operational team that travels south. And we also are really keen on maintaining any of those long-term data sets that have been going potentially since 1957, where one COVID year would be a hole in the data set. And so where we can accommodate those, and they're close to Scott Base, we are. Where they're more difficult to accommodate, we've been working with the scientists to see if we can find a way to maintain those data sets. So that's our focus, which means in a normal season we would send sort of 350 people south, as we'll probably only send around 130 people down to the continent, and predominantly the work that will be done will be kind of Scott Base. So this is a really unusual year for us, and it's really disappointing that we can't offer up a really broad range of logistics and fit in as much science as we would in a normal year. And we're really cognizant that it is not only disappointing for us, but incredibly disappointing for scientists. This is their prime opportunity throughout the season to collect data, and it's really disappointing for all of us, I think, that we're running a skinny season. But given our overriding ethos is to make sure that we maintain safety and that we mitigate the risk of COVID arriving on the continent, it's the right thing to do. Another really significant thing that's happening for us is we are in the process, as you will know, of working towards a new Scott Base, and that process is in the final stages of design. So we're gradually working through and refining the design. And we are looking to put in our budget bid in December for the funding, which would be wonderful. COVID hasn't made an awful lot of difference to that plan. Our plan was to do quite a bit of work before we moved on to the continent in a couple of seasons' time. And so having a season this year that is relatively skinny hasn't made much of a dent in that project, albeit there are a couple of critical path things that we would need to undertake this year to make sure that we don't push that out any further. So the plans for those buildings is coming along fantastically. We've been in really close consultation with all the users to make sure that the base is fit for purpose. But there are also a couple of things that we want to make sure that we take from the old base into the new base. And one of those is this amazing sense of community. So you will know if you're at Scott Base, you often are required to pitch in and help out. Everyone gets together for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and it has a really nice community feel. And I guess the best example of that for me is last time I was down in Continent and was taking a group of well-starred generals for a tour around the building. We ran into a gentleman who was vacuuming the floor. And that gentleman is one of our specialist external management consultants that we take south to help us get our team leaders into really good shape. And here was he helping out by being on the end of a vacuum cleaner, which clearly wasn't part of his leadership development brief, but was just something that you do to kind of keep that community ticking along. And that piece we want to make sure moves into the new base. And the other piece is a real sense of New Zealand. So we're working hard to make sure that when you enter the base, it feels like a piece of New Zealand. It has that kind of sense around it that I think the old base has quite well as well. So kind of quite some unusual seasons and a really big piece of work hopefully coming to fruition in the Scott Base redevelopment. We're also heavy to work on the new Antarctic science strategy, working alongside MFAT to renew that, which will be wonderful. And working hard on what a 4-year plan looks like. So we're trying to work out if this season is a skinny season for COVID. And once we've got ourselves through that season, then what do the following seasons look like and are they likely to be affected or not? So quite a bit of work underway, but nice time to pause and be thankful that we're not living in our -26 day in complete darkness, and to celebrate all the work that the Scott Base team do over winter, both in preparation for the season ahead, and regardless of whether it's a lighter season than normal, there's still quite a bit of work to undertake to make sure that we can get done what we need to get done in the summer season. So it's wonderful to stop and pause and have a bit of a celebration. So thanks for having me along. This is, I think, the third of my celebration, so I'm enjoying this whole midwinter thing.
All right, remember to unmute. Thank you, Sarah. That's fantastic. That's a lot of food for thought there. I think, yeah, I know that you're in Wellington right now, so while we're not quite at -20, I think that we can still agree it's a bit chilly. Okay, so we are now going to move to John, the co-chair of the Christchurch branch for the Toast to Treaty Nations.
Good evening. Yes, kia ora. I'm John Rogers. I'm co-chair of the Canterbury branch along with Shirley Russ. And I'd just like to start by thanking the Wellington branch for allowing the other branches to take part, and for Georgia and the whole Wellington branch really for being the lead in the online presence of the Antarctic Society in recent days. I think it's going really well. And I want to use the opportunity here before I give the toast just to give a quick update on the activities of the Canterbury branch. So we are actually going to have a midwinter celebration in person together this year because we can, but it's going to be a little different. It's the year of doing things differently. So the Canterbury branch is actually meeting at the International Antarctic Center, the Antarctic attraction out at the airport, on Sunday morning for breakfast with the penguins. So we're going to have a full cooked breakfast, and we're going to have the penguin handlers there, and there's going to be a group of us enjoying our breakfast while the penguins enjoy theirs. So we're really happy to do that. The Antarctic attraction is very supportive of the Canterbury branch, and we're trying to support them, our local business as well. And then we have a pretty busy program of activities coming up, and I want to just highlight one of them, which is around the season opening, which I know it will be a reduced season, but it still will be a season. And the Antarctic office of the Christchurch City Council is putting together a new program this year. It's going to be a full 10-day program of Antarctic activities between October 8th and 18th. Under the branding of Days of Ice. So we've had various kind of Antarctic festivals in the city, the Ice Fest and the annual Explore Antarctica Day, which has been very successful. And this year it's branching out, and the City Council, the Antarctic office, is providing kind of overall branding and a few of the major events, and encouraging local organizations to provide their own events that will fit into that whole week of activities. So there will be that Explore Antarctica Day. It's going to be in the Art Center this year, right by the Botanic Gardens, and it will have the usual participation from Antarctica New Zealand and from the Antarctic Heritage Trust, from Gateway Antarctica and the University of Canterbury, from the Society, from the Canterbury Museum, and a number of other organizations. Often the Korean and Italian Antarctic programs also take part. It's a real family day out. There's all kinds of activities in and around the city for that day. But this year, there's also the next weekend will be the more formal part. So that's the weekend of the 8th and 9th. The next weekend will be the more formal part with the civic reception by Mayor Dalziel, and also the church service and the wreath laying at the Scott statue. The Society always is responsible for that wreath laying, and we will be again this year. And we're also planning a few support activities and other activities during that whole week. So there's going to be a Polar Film Festival following on from the one last year. And again, as with last year, the Society, the branch will support that. There are Antarctic themed guided walks in both Christchurch CBD and around Littleton, and the branch participates in those. But one activity that I want to highlight from the branch this year is that we have formed a partnership with the Ferrymead Rotary Club to take over maintenance and enhancement of a building known as Scott's Cabin. Now, this is a little hut that went to Antarctica with, Scott's saying he knows all about it. It went to Antarctica with the Terra Nova, but was never erected. And it came back and was erected on Clifton Hill on the estate of Kinsey, who was Scott's agent. And it was used by Kathleen Scott and by Oriana Wilson, and it nearly tumbled down the cliff after the earthquakes. But it was rescued and moved out to Godley Head, where it sits rather forlornly in a kind of an untended and rather open spot. So we are meeting with Doc soon and the Ferrymead Rotary, and we have plans to enhance the site with some planting and some landscaping and some more historical placards. And we're going to be having open days during the days of ice. We'll be having family open days at Scott's Cabin. So that's one thing we're really all looking forward to. We'll also be decorating the trams. We decorate the trams on the family day. You may not know that when Shackleton was here with the Nimrod expedition, he planted an oak tree in Christchurch, and now it's a majestic tree. We've gathered acorns from the Shackleton oak, and we have seedlings that we'll be using as prizes and maybe guessing games. So we do have a busy program ahead, and I know it's a different world or a different time that we live in, but I do hope that we'll have a good turnout at those activities and a good program throughout the year. So I look forward to seeing the Canterbury members at those, and I'll move on and give the toast to treaty nations. So the Antarctic Treaty was signed in Washington, D.C. on December the 1st in 1959. So just over 60 years ago. We just passed the 60th anniversary. There were 12 original signatories, which over the years has grown to be 54 nations, 29 of which have full consultative status. And as Sarah noted, these nations have undertaken to enforce and extend the treaty. And it is surprisingly short, only 12 articles, but it has been remarkably effective. Through this treaty, the treaty nations promise to preserve Antarctica and the Southern Ocean as a region of peaceful activities focused on science and on the better understanding of our world. Along the way, the treaty has led to greater cooperation among these nations, not just scientifically, but also logistically and diplomatically. The treaty grew from the cooperative science of the International Geophysical Year, so we should honor those scientists and recognize give them credit for getting it started. But we also need to recognize the goodwill and cooperative efforts of the governments and of the people of those treaty nations in making it better over the years. So please raise your glasses in a toast to the treaty nations.
Thank you for that, John. You guys have a massive list of things coming up, and I keep definitely intending to come down for the open season day. It sounds, yeah, like a lot of fun and a good bunch of people.
Welcome. It's just getting organized and things are getting added all the time, so it's looking good.
Appreciate that. So moving from that toast to the treaty nations, we are first going to hear from the Italian ambassador, Marcelli.
Kia ora tatu. Thank you, Georgia. And of course, I raised my glass that was filled with Italian Prosecco to toast to the treaty nations. A little bit of commercial advertisement. Well, Italy started its scientific engagement in Antarctica in 1985 with a dedicated national program and the formation of a national scientific committee for Antarctica. We obtained Antarctic Treaty consultative status in 1987. And today, Italy maintains 2 research stations in Antarctica. The first one, built in 1986, is Mario Zucchelli Station at Terranova Bay. And I'll try to share some photos with you, if I manage to. Let's see. Just a second. I hope you can see the photo.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mario Zucchelli Station, which is open only during the summer season. In the same area operate also 2 other stations, the Korean Jangbogo and the Germany's Gondwana. Zucchelli Base can host 90 persons, both scientists and people in charge of logistics. A conversion to solar and wind energy to power the base is ongoing. The movable target is to reduce consumption of fuel by 30% each year until reaching carbon neutrality. And the second base is Concordia. It's a base that we share with the French. And it is located on the Antarctic Plateau at 3,233 meters. The base was inaugurated in 1997 and has operated as a year-round station since 2005. And it is accommodating 15 persons during the winter. They are wintering over there right now, and 60 in the summer. Last year, which was the 35th year of Italian activity in Antarctica, we had 2 important additional features to our research season. The first one was the use of an icebreaker that Italy acquired recently, the Laura Basi icebreaker, which is named after the first woman to hold a professorship in a university. It was at Bologna University in the 18th century. And this is the ship. It's a little bit photo. I try now to enlarge the image. If I get to zoom in, no, it doesn't work. Okay. Anyway, this is the ship who is now docked in Littleton, near Christchurch, because the Italian program is based in Christchurch. We use Christchurch as a gateway to Antarctica. And the second feature that was introduced in the program last year is the use of military C-130 transport plane. This is the C-130J Hercules plane. It's the same model that has been acquired recently by the New Zealand Air Force. And so the Italian Air Force came back to Antarctica after 20 years, a lapse of 20 years. And so they operated between Christchurch and the Mario Zucchelli base. And research Italian personnel is working to build a runway on the rock near Mario Zucchelli station in the Boulder Clay area. The runway will be very useful for landings and takeoffs during the summer when the ocean ice melts away. Once completed, now it is ready by 2/3. It will be the only hard surface runway in the region. Research activities are conducted in the fields of life sciences, earth sciences, atmospheric sciences and space technology and meteorology. There are on average 50 projects carried out each year. Now I would like to spend a few words on two fascinating areas where Italian scientists are active in projects in Antarctica, namely glaciology and biomedicine. EPICA, which is an acronym that means acronym for European Project for Ice Coring in Antarctica, was conducted between 1996 and 2004 near Concordia to collect ice cores up to a depth of 3,270 meters. By analyzing the samples, glaciologists could reconstruct climate change in the last 800,000 years. So this project is now concluded. By analyzing the ice cores, they were also able to retrieve air bubbles trapped in the ice that could reveal concentration of gases like carbon dioxide and methane, and hence temperatures at the time of their entrapment in the ice. The project was funded by Horizon, the framework program for research and innovation of the European Union. The continuation of that project, named Beyond EPICA, has started last year in Little Dome Sea, 40 kilometers away from Concordia. Scientists are now drilling for the oldest ice in the world to get long-term carbon cycle climate feedbacks up to 1.5 million years ago. The project is conducted by 15 European scientific institutions, not just from the European Union, but also from the UK, Switzerland, and Norway. And the project will continue until the Antarctic summer of 2024, of course, COVID allowing. And results about climate change record will be available in 2025. They will help to better understand the role of greenhouse gases in climate change and design more effective strategies for adaptation and mitigation. Collecting ice cores from high mountain glaciers at mass risk from climate change and storing them in Antarctica for future generation of scientists is the goal of another project, which is called Ice Memory, or also Ice Library, which is a French-Italian initiative. Antarctica is indeed the most reliable and natural freezer in the world. Hundreds of ice cores taken from around the world will be stored in a snow cave at minus 54 degrees centigrade in Antarctica, and again near the Concordia station. Ice core samples have already been drilled from non-polar glaciers, currently in danger of degradation or disappearance because of global warming. Samples were taken from Mont Blanc in the Alps, the Andes Illimani Glacier in Bolivia, and Mount Elbrus in the Caucasus Range in Russia. Now going over from glaciology to biomedicine, an interesting line of research in life sciences with medical application is about gram-negative bacteria found in Antarctica, because all gram-negative bacteria carry endotoxins called LPS, which are capable of triggering or suppressing the immune response. The Italian researchers are looking for new molecules that can stimulate or reduce the immune response in humans. Another promising project with biomedical implication is the study of blood circulation in toothfishes. So toothfishes is, this guy is a toothfish. And toothfishes have, by the way, have also been studied by Kiwi scientists. They have a long, they have an ability to produce antifreeze proteins that keep their blood from crystallizing in Southern Ocean, where water temperatures can dip below zero. Imagine just the possible application for anticoagulant biodrugs without harmful side effects for humans. And now I wish to conclude on a romantic note. And this is the photo of a toothfish and a seal romancing on the ice. No hora mai. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Was it romancing or something else?
No, something else. Of course.
I'm very excited about the old ice and climate sensitivity investigations that you guys are doing, and it's really exciting and will be a massive contribution. And I should also mention, I know one of our Wellington branch members has been lucky enough to enjoy the hospitality of the Chali station, and has very fond memories of talking about that. I might just get you to stop sharing your screen as we move forward. But thank you, so much for coming along tonight. And we will be hearing next from American Ambassador Brown.
I always have to go after the Italian. It's incredible. You know, he not only dresses up so nicely wearing his Ferragamo and a tie and looking amazingly handsome, but it's always good to see Fabrizio, my dear friend. Georgia, thank you for doing this, you and your team, and obviously pulling something together like this is always really special. I'll tell you what, I'll never forget when I first got here, going down to Christchurch and being part of the festivities and meeting Sir Edmund Hillary's wife, and a living legend, and being able to ask her some incredible personal, probably too personal questions, but she was so gracious to spend some time with me, and then have the opportunity to go down to the ice and actually be reading Shackleton's book, his biography, and being in his hut and actually understand. I'm reading about how he's actually built it and the various items within it, and they're right there. And it was just so cool. And I'll never forget getting off the plane and literally being in a t-shirt like this and, very light, pants. And within, by the end of the day, we were heading down to Scott Base, and it was like, 40 below and the wind is howling. And we went and had beers at Scott Base for the Kiwis. And it was just such a warm and loving environment. Obviously, we've been involved, since the very beginning. And I remember you just referenced the signing of the treaty. I was 2 months old. So, I certainly don't remember it, but certainly have become a believer, understanding, not only going down to, the universities here at Otago and going to the science department and seeing what they're working on, but obviously being there and seeing what's happening, the cooperation, even during the nuclear issues of New Zealand and the US. I mean, the one thing was always constant was obviously what happens between McMurdo and Scott Base. Anyone who has been there, it has to be a believer. I mean, it's no doubt. And we've been there obviously for 64 years. That US-New Zealand relationship is still very powerful and strong, and always will be. And the cooperation amongst the other bases is important because, quite frankly, it's usually a matter of life and death. And when the hits the fan, we are always there to help for each other. And quite frankly, the work that's being done down there is for mankind. I mean, the fact that, if my memory serves me, New Zealand and the United States, they identified the ozone the ozone hole opening, and really focused on trying to address that very important issues, the collaboration between our two bases with the 3 wind turbines, the fact that you guys always try to steal our ice cream machine, our soft serve machine, you know, it's been noted, believe me, you know, we have our eyes on you guys. Yes, I don't say no, I know it's true, okay? I do. And and just the cooperation between the two bases and other bases, obviously, it was really a very special. You know, one of the things I'm referencing is another joint proposal to develop the Ross Sea Region Marine Protected Area off the coast, which was adopted by the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. In 2016, that's something we were doing. Like you, Georgia, we are spending a tremendous amount of money upgrading McMurdo. When I was there, I was quite frankly a little bit surprised how not only wasteful it was in terms of the environmental footprint, but the fact that it's so old and it needed so much work. And I can assure you that when I returned, I advocated very strongly with my former Senate colleagues and the administration to make sure, obviously, that the NSF had the proper funding and you know, did my small part to continue to push that effort to the point where, as you know, the Polar Star has been here, it's been there, it's been around forever. And the president recently authorized on June 9th, actually, in order for to do a new fleet of icebreakers. So there's a tremendous commitment. The strategic, the environmental, the humankind necessity of keeping that area virgin territory respected, treasured as a catalyst and a key to unlocking what's happening now around the globe is so critically important. And I can assure you that the administration and a lot of the folks that I deal with are deeply, deeply committed. And quite frankly, we're concerned with some of the things that are happening down there. And you know, that's something for a future conversation, but still something we should not avoid and hold everybody to accountability to make sure that the area is not taken advantage of. Before I finish, I just want to commend everybody who's participating. I'm psyched to actually get down to Christchurch. I mean, I'll be around, and I'm looking forward to a lot of those great activities. I remember being at the center with the penguins and going in the deep freeze area in a t-shirt to see if I could do it, and you know, a lot of the other things I learned. That's where I got Shackleton's biography and learned a lot more about obviously Antarctica and the history of it. And I think it's so critically important for young people to be part of that. So good on the Canterbury folks to get out there and do it. To obviously Fabrizio and Patricia, you know, dear friends, amazingly dedicated diplomats, you know, good on you guys for your efforts and your country's efforts. And I just want to say, as long as I'm breathing, you know, I'm a believer, you know, I'm all in, and I don't think I'm done. So I'm going to continue to work hard to do my very best to protect those resources and also give that area, McMurdo in particular, the tools and resource and financial support to make a real difference. So I should have said, you know, tena koutou, katoa, ko, Scott Brown, Tuku, and Noah, let me see, here's my little Corey Gracie. She says hi. And so God bless. And I'd like to offer a toast to Georgia, to you and your team for everything that you're doing. So cheers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was fantastic. And you're right. The one visit that I have been to Antarctica, American night, when the only time you're allowed into Scott Base, is always such great fun. But also, yeah, I think it gives a real sense of pride that other people want to be a part of, you know, what we have and what we enjoy. So yeah, thank you for coming along tonight and for your but for being a believer, and maybe you're a believer too. Sorry. Okay, and now we will hear from the Australian High Commissioner, Patricia Forsyth.
Kia ora. Can I just begin by, Georgia, acknowledging you from the Wellington branch and the New Zealand Antarctic Society for putting on this sort of event and inviting my colleagues, the ambassadors of Italy and the United States. I have to say, if I'm going to celebrate midwinter, this is as good a way to do it as any other. And I'm only sorry that we have to do it virtually and we can't do it in person, because the descriptor of some of the ways in which you celebrate in different branches is quite exciting, and we should celebrate. There is much to celebrate about what has been achieved and what is being achieved in the Antarctic. And I have to say, as I listen to everybody and I think about Australia's approach to the Antarctic, the word I use is collaboration. It is absolutely at the heart of our approach. And tonight, as I hear the contributions, I can say that's the word that we would all use. And it's great that you've brought together countries that are vitally involved in what is happening there. It's also an opportunity for me to acknowledge the leadership that New Zealand has played and does play in the Antarctic, whether that's in research and exploration or in raising both political and public awareness of some of the key issues in the Antarctic and broadly the global environmental efforts. New Zealand is always associated with those key environmental issues, and you've done a spectacular job in the Antarctic. And in events such as this, that you bring together your partners to discuss, I guess, how we all can collectively work towards the Antarctic and improving its environment. So tonight's an opportunity to put on the record Australia's support for what you do. I certainly acknowledge the scientists and the researchers who've dedicated their careers to the study of the complex nature of the Antarctic and thinking about how that can contribute to more broadly the planet's climate and ecosystems. And we learn so much from understanding the long history of the Antarctic. I know I think I'm the last part of the main course, and I think I'm standing between us and dessert. And I understand dessert is when we cut to the Scott Base, to Natalie Robinson and Rory O'Connor to get their contribution. And so I'm not going to take too long, because I think we're all going to be, that's such an exciting part of how we're going to celebrate midwinter. And I can't quite imagine what midwinter is really like in the Antarctic, but no doubt we'll hear about that. And it's an opportunity to acknowledge Italy, the US and the other countries, that France as well, that contribute to long-term sustainability. And I just say a little bit about Australia, because we are one of the 12 original signatories to the Antarctic Treaty, which we've already heard a bit about tonight, signed in 1961. We are absolutely committed to maintaining a leading and an influential role in the international Antarctic affairs. We made the Antarctic a key feature within our foreign policy white paper in 2017. And we've also got with that a 20-year action plan. And so the Australian Antarctic strategy is embedded in those key documents. We will continue to ensure that it's an exemplary model for international cooperation, and we'll ensure that the principles of the Antarctic Treaty System are always respected. And they are peace, science, and environmental protection. For us, it is about working with our partners to ensure the continent remains non-militarised and absent of all mining and oil drilling activities. We are investing in strengthening research capabilities, which include an aerodrome project at the Davis Research Base to provide year-round access, and a bit like Italy, a new icebreaker. Can I just say about the Davis Aerodrome project, it's not yet been approved. It will be subject to a comprehensive environmental evaluation under the Antarctic Treaty, and we hope to commence that process during 2020. You mentioned earlier it was an unusual year. In that unusual year, not everything is running quite to time. If I can give you an upbreak on Icebreaker RSV Nuyina, it was due earlier in the year. It will be in Hobart in Tasmania by November. and we are planning that its first voyage will be in the summer of 2021. And we certainly look forward to the contribution that that new enhanced icebreaker is going to make to the work of both Australia and more broadly some of the Antarctic research. We know that Antarctic sustainability requires collective action, and through our joint efforts we have created new marine protected areas, advanced research related to climate, marine ecosystems and conservation. And for Australia at the moment, a key focus is on developing procedures for the cleanup and remediation of abandoned work sites. As we know, at the heart of all of these things is stewardship of the region that rests with all of us and our collective efforts. So can I just say that we must then, not only about tonight, but continue our collective and collaborative efforts to expand our efforts to protect the unique Antarctic environment. Our Foreign Minister and Minister for Women gave a speech last November at the 60th anniversary of the Antarctic Treaty. And she said, and I'll conclude by saying, for Australia, Antarctica matters. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Yes, you're right. The collaboration is the key that for scientists and definitely, I think, as Ambassador Brown also mentioned, it's life or death in Antarctica, and we can't do the work that we do down there without one another. And I absolutely love celebrating it, and I look forward to in future inviting other Antarctic Treaty signatories along to speak on the night, because it's an absolute example to the world about what can be done when your heart's in the right place, to be maybe slightly more romantic than Fabrizio finished with. So we're now, actually, before we move on, we did get some other messages from ambassadors that couldn't come along tonight. So from the Honorary Consul General of Finland, to the Antarctic Society, please accept my congratulations for continuing with the tradition and organising this most special event with its link to Scott Base, a special date in the calendar in recognition of the team's efforts down on the ice. Best wishes from Finland and me personally. He also included a message for the Scott Base team. Please accept my warmest, as is feasible, best wishes for their formal or informal midwinter swim on the ice. We had our own midwinter swim this past weekend in Wellington with copious Finlandia vodka to warm up. I trust the team is sufficiently resourced to maintain correct internal temperature for the celebrations. Message from the Ambassador of Peru. The Embassy of Peru wishes to extend its greetings to the Antarctic community on the occasion of the Midwinter celebration. We express our appreciation for the hard work and dedication of those on the front line of discovery as we observe the midpoint of the darkest and coldest season. We recognise the professional commitment to advance the frontiers of Antarctic research knowledge. This work is important to the growth of scientific understanding and innovation. Likewise, in the current critical context, when the world is affected by COVID-19, making vows to continue preserving the Antarctic continent as a zone free from this pandemic, we encourage the Antarctic community to persevere through its actions the health of that important continent for the generation of scientific knowledge that helps to solve the problems of society. In the framework of the Antarctic Treaty, based on the collaborative scientific research, Peru makes itself available so that together we can form alliances that generate knowledge in the search for solutions to the problems related to health and climate change that severely affect our countries and the world. Peru wishes you a satisfying, healthy and productive southern winter and a happy midwinter day. And from the British High Commission, in the wake of COVID-19, we have seen how the world can come together in the face of adversity. To respond to other global challenges such as climate change, it is more important than ever that we continue international cooperation on Antarctica. The UK is committed to increasing coordination with like-minded parties through scientific research and logistic support. From the Turkish Embassy, the New Zealand Antarctic Society assumes a key role to raise awareness for Antarctica and brings us together. Turkey is a non-consultative party to the Antarctic Treaty System since 1995, is a relatively new and determined member of the Antarctic family. I'm glad to be a part of the Society and thank the Society for all its efforts for Antarctica. Antarctica is unique and has been a scene for what we need more than ever in these days, such as cooperation between nations. We believe that the Antarctic spirit can give us much needed global solidarity to combat COVID-19. Let's hope this threat fades away as if the Antarctic winds sweep it away. From there, I just wanted to thank again the ambassadors for joining us tonight. That has been a real treat, I can imagine, for myself and for the rest of the society members watching. And we'll move on to Ken from the Auckland branch, co-chair of the Auckland branch, for the toast to present parties.
Thank you, Georgia. Well, hello and welcome on behalf of the Auckland branch. The COVID-19 virus actually has one good outcome, and that is this very meeting. So it's forced us to use the technology to bring us all together. Otherwise, we just have a sort of fragmented, regional midwinter celebration. So this has been a wonderful opportunity to just pull all of you guys together. All these, the wonderful ambassadors who've taken their time to come and join us, and Sarah from the Antarctica, New Zealand, and so many thanks to the Wellington branch for starting to pull it together, the Antarctic Society Comms Group for making it all possible, and Georgia in particular for holding it all together on the night. So the Auckland branch, we have deferred our midwinter celebration till next month, and so we've got a couple of interesting speakers. Kevin O'Malley, who was the Antarctic Society volunteer that went down there for a summer season to help out with some maintenance on Scott Place, and I was pretty jealous because I actually chucked my head into the ring as well, and with very limited actual ability, and he won the day. And we've got Myra Walton, who's the third generation of sort of Antarctic related people, and she's done most of her research in the northern hemisphere, northern ice, but finally got an opportunity to go to Antarctica, to the peninsula last year. So she'll be telling us about, or both of them will be telling us about their experiences there. The other thing in parallel we're trying to put together is a series of talks about Antarctica and climate change. And so the idea is to look at the progression of research from, let me find the description. So we're trying to get a flow of talks about, this is what's happened in the past, this is what's happened since the industrial age started, these are the impacts on Antarctica now, and this is how Antarctica is likely to respond in the near future, and what the implications are for New Zealand and for the rest of the world in terms of climate and physical impacts. So that's what we've got coming up. I think the first one is scheduled for the 8th of July, and then we'll have a lecture every 3 weeks after that. But that's the sort of the vague plan at this stage, and we'll confirm that later. Now, with the COVID lockdown in New Zealand and probably worldwide, we've just had a small inkling of what the Antarctic winter overcruise are going through right now. Although it has to be said that the winter overcruise are doing it voluntarily, and they probably had an idea of what they were in for when they signed up, whereas we just had to wing it. And during the lockdown here, some people really struggled, where some of us really thrived. And my guess is that's how it's sort of playing out in the stations across Antarctica right now. The contrast is that New Zealand has day and night, and we're now pretty free to go to get out and about. Whereas the winter over crews still have another couple of months to go before the next sunrise, and before they get to see some new smiling faces. The good news is that the virus is not a threat in Antarctica, and we just hope it never will be. So here's hoping that we all continue to be COVID-19 free, and here's hoping that the present parties at Scott Base and across the continent are thriving in their environment. So ladies and gentlemen, raise your glasses to present parties. Georgia, back to you.
Thank you, Ken. Again, lots of exciting things coming up in the books, and as you said, the opportunity that COVID provided us to, I think, connect a lot more as a society throughout New Zealand has been really enjoyable, and I think it will provide a lot more kind of material as we go forward together. So I'm going to hand over to Natalie now to introduce Rory.
Hi, thanks, Georgia. So my name's Natalie. I'm a member of the Wellington Branch Committee and also an active researcher in Antarctica. And it was my pleasure to take up the responsibility of contacting Scott Base to organise this Q&A, which is, as has been said, as the dessert for our midwinter virtual dinner. I will just hand over to Rory in a second just to give us a bit of a rundown on what's happening at Scott Base at the moment. But just to advise anybody who has a question that they want to ask of Scott Base, please put it in the chat below this video, and I'll pick it up from there and relay it to Rory. So Rory, are you happy to just explain how the base is operating at the moment, how many people there, what you're getting up to? Maybe there's some winter over projects. You need to unmute, sorry, Rory.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Great.
Great. I guess the first thing to say is that we're getting used to this Zoom technology. It only arrived down with us about 2 months ago. So yeah, trying to work out how to log on, work out these passwords. So you've got me in glorious Technicolor on my laptop because I couldn't make it actually work in the fancy video conference room. So you now see all the detritus of my desk and everything as I worked out what the password is and be able to log on only about 10 minutes ago. So thanks for the invite. It's great to hear everybody. And obviously I can see some of the images coming through. So hello from Scott Base and the winter team of 2020. You're just saying, what was the team composition like? So for this year, we have 11 folk. We've had our last flight at the beginning of April. So it's been quite a few months now where we've been isolated from the rest of the world. We haven't had the midwinter flight, which we might typically expect at this time of year. That unfortunately was a casualty of the coronavirus. So our next opportunity to see people will probably be in another couple of months when we work out what the final flight schedule will be. So I guess it's been a very different winter than any of us could possibly have imagined when we signed up and when we arrived all those months ago. But it's been a tremendous experience already. There's several of us who have actually had previous overwintering experience. One of them at Scott Base previously, and 2 people who've overwintered at one of the British Antarctic stations as well. So we've got some good experience here on base. We've now pulled together over the winter to actually create a really memorable midwinter celebration. It is such an important milestone in the calendar that we have here, and there was so much effort put into design of invitations, to planning the event, to the decorations in the dining room, to the amazing meal put together by Lance, our chef. He's really in the spotlight for this kind of event, obviously, being like the one big day of the year. He can be terrible for 364 days, but he's got one moment to shine, which is typically this midwinter dinner. And shine he certainly did. Absolutely memorable occasion. And you know, we were lucky. You were talking about isolation, but we're lucky. We can share our time and place and space with our friends across the hill at McMurdo. So we had a lovely evening where we were able to invite 22 guests over, making a dinner for 33 on the night. So we celebrated on Friday, the 19th, a really beautiful evening, one which was over all too soon. And then they repaid the favour and they had their midwinter celebration on the Saturday. And half the team were able to get over for that event. And by all accounts, again, tremendous effort that they put in for that, and a wonderful evening. So a very memorable occasion, and now we're sort of looking forward to putting that darkness in the rearview mirror and head back towards the sunshine and summertime again. My only thing that I'm still hoping for is some really proper aurora. We haven't had some really spectacular displays yet, so whilst I'd dearly love to see the sun, even tomorrow, I'd still dearly love to see some fantastic aurora and just be awed by that whole experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Rory. I've got some questions here. So you said there were 11 on base at Scott Base. How many does that train? Well, how many over at McMurdo? Did you manage to invite the whole crew, or how many over there?
Yeah, well, we would dearly love to invite the whole crew. I think Lance would have something to say about that. There is 142, I think I'm reliably informed, for this winter. Probably a little bit less than they might have normally, but yeah, nonetheless, it would completely swamp our dining room and our capabilities.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. That's quite a number for Scott Base. I have a question here from Ken. Does anyone have any T3 syndrome episodes they're willing to confess to?
That's interesting. We've had a lot of discussion about the infamous T3 syndrome. I think part of the problem is it's one of these ones which is really difficult to define. And because it's so difficult to define, you could almost label anything as T3 and somebody couldn't say, yeah, you were wrong. So anytime anything happens, we can always blame it on T3. I'm not sure if we have faced it yet, but you know, we're all probably pretty biased, and maybe we've actually arrived in a kind of group think situation, and we all think each other is normal, but to an outsider, we might be clearly suffering from the effects of it. I do say one thing that is probably most people have noticed, that it is actually quite disrupting to sleep, which you think might be a bit surprising, that you've got all the opportunity, cozy bedrooms, and there's not an excessive amount of social interaction, that you'd have a great opportunity to get that good night's sleep. But that lack of the day-night situation and the sunshine to keep resetting your body clock, I think actually does have a material effect. So most of us at some point have really had disrupted sleep. And I think for poor sleep quality is probably to blame for most of whatever the T3 is.
Thanks, Rory. I was going to ask what special midwinter celebrations, apart from the dinners, and whether you're upholding any sort of traditions from the historic age. But there's also a question in the chat. Did you have a swim for midwinter dinner? And did you dress up for, sorry, not a swim for the midwinter dinner, a swim for midwinter.
Yeah.
And did you dress up for dinner?
And dress up for swimming. Yeah. Yes, we did try to dress to impress for the dinner. Unfortunately, we haven't done the polar plunge at Scott Base for quite some time now. I've overwintered previously, and I've done the polar plunge. It's a unique experience, and having done it, I'm not sure it's one I'd be keen to repeat again. And it's not something which happens across the hill at McMurdo. But I have been looking around to see some of the social media posts from other bases, and I have seen those polar plunges happening, and yeah, it scares the living daylights out of me.
Yes, I've seen them on my feeds as well, and I feel the same. Do you have opportunities for getting out and about over winter? Perhaps, are there any science projects that you need to get out for?
There is a bit of science which is actually done on the base itself. And the whole base, I don't know how many folk have actually been here, but the whole base is interconnected through a series of linkways. So you can roll out of bed, into breakfast, off to the lab, do the science, and not actually have to open the door outside. We do have one other building, which is on the other side of McMurdo Base, where we actually do some of the ozone measurements and some of the atmospheric science as well. That's basically a monitoring one, because a lot of the work is automated over there, but that does require a visit out most days to actually go and check everything is working. Apart from that, the other opportunities to get out are really for sort of an activity-based one. If you want to go for a walk up the hills, go and see what's happening. Try and get a glimpse of that twilight in the northern horizon. We can still get out on skis, remarkably, even at this time. The moonlight when it's out is absolutely tremendous, and you can really see a really long way. So that's a good opportunity, and a few people have done that. But I guess it's midwinter, and Antarctica has thrown us some really good weather in the last 2 days. We've moved into what we call a condition 1 situation, which is where the wind speed's consistently above 55 knots, and it really means that we can't actually really leave the base perimeter, or even sometimes get out of the any of the main doors itself. So we've actually had a proper blast of Antarctica in the last 2 days, just to remind us who's boss.
Cool. What else did I have? So I'm guessing it's too early to get out on the sea ice. So you're skiing on the ice shelf. Would that be right?
Yes, that's on the ice shelf. So we can go some of the way along towards the airfields out there. But we also have what we call our batch out there, our little holiday home called Square Frame. Or we can actually get out. It actually has some accommodation and stove in there, so we can actually get out even overnight if we want during the winter. So a little escape pod from us when having 11 people on base is just too much.
Can you describe, Rory, what it's been like to watch COVID unfold from your unique position or unique perspective?
It's one that's really hard to sort of come to terms with it, because you watch it on the TV, but in many ways it's got no practical application to day-to-day life. We've not had to change any of our winter works programs, the way we work together, the way that we join with our colleagues across the hill. McMurdo, nothing materially changed from that point of view. Yet when we watch the TV and we see the staggering impacts of border closures and lockdowns and bubbles and things like that, it's absolutely incredible. And we're hoping that obviously things are in a much better situation by the time that we come to leave. But I think we're one of those remarkable social experiences that we will have missed almost in its entirety, at least that main early phase when there was a lot of unknowns and angst and concerns at that point. I mean, it has made us sort of focus on family and friends back home and making sure that we keep in close touch with them and how they were getting on through that. And I think it was an interesting role reversal. Everybody was kind of concerned when we came down here, what would we be facing? What's the 24-hour darkness look like? How would you cope with the isolation? You know, would Lance be able to produce some good food for you or not? What are you going to be living on? Whereas now we feel comfortable. Lance is great. Everything is well set up here for an extended stay. And we're now worried for people at home. How are you getting on? What's your bubble like? What are the neighbours doing? Can you get out and about? What are the food supplies like? You know, we know what our food supply is like. We can map that out for years. We know what the fuel situation is like. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. No, we have none of those worries at all. But actually now we're the ones worried about, you know, the other 6.5 billion people who are not in Antarctica, what they're actually going through.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that sort of reversed perspective on that. In terms of when you'll get home, can you just describe what the general length of service is? You said that the last flight out in was April, but I think you've been there considerably longer than that.
Yeah, so most people will do a 13-month contract if they're overwintering. So that will normally bring them in September and they leave in the following October. My role is specific for a season, so I'm the winter-based leader. So I came in at the end of January to take over from the summer management team, and I'll be here until that October time as well. So my stint here is about 9 months.
I've got a question in the chat. What time do you follow at Scott Base, please?
Well, hopefully I'm on New Zealand time, and if that's right, it's about 7:45 with you guys.
Yep, that's right. And a question, as well as being the base leader, do you fill another role at Scott Base?
I'm not sure if you heard before, but today I'm also the radio operator, so I'm managing the comms, which we take on a shift basis. But in my role, I'm kind of in everybody else's pockets all the time. So I might be deputy chef, deputy science tech, deputy electrician. So I spread myself around all the other roles and get involved in all the other base tasks as well. So yeah, I see myself as certainly the 12th person to go and assist. I do seem to get a lot of the dirty jobs as well. So maybe that's my just dessert.
Well, thank you very much, Rory. I've come to the end of any questions that have been submitted, but I thank you very much for your generous time and for explaining your experience for us. The last job we have for you, please, is to lead the toast to past party. Are you happy to do that now?
Yeah. Yep, happy to do that now. And unfortunately, I haven't actually charged a glass. I've still just got my cup of tea from dinner time, but I will actually go to the bar later and actually procure something a bit more suitable and drink to that. I did make an address at our own midwinter dinner, and while I was thinking about what I should be saying, I was trying to work out what made winter 2020 different to all the other winters and the wintering parties here. And it obviously coronavirus has swept all before it, and one of the reasons that we're obviously having this Zoom kind of conversation and connection this evening. But I didn't really want to focus on something like that. And I think what winter 2020 meant to me was the people, and it's the people I'm here with, and all the unique and personal perspectives that we have for our experience down here at Scott Base. And we have 11 different experiences, but together we're the 2020 winter team. So my address was all about the people and all our quirks and foibles and everything which makes it such a unique experience and a real bonding one for all us, and hopefully ones that we'll look back in future years with very fond memories. So it was the people which make the difference, and we noticed that every time we walked down the main hallway in Scott Base, because the hallway is lined with all the midwinter photographs. So going all the way back to that first Overwinter season with Ed all those years ago, we've got a picture for every subsequent one, and it's amazing how much time people will spend in that corridor looking at the pictures, looking at the way the hairstyles change, the way the facial hair changes. You're moving from the 60s and the 70s and 80s. When did the dogs disappear from Antarctica, and when did the teams change sizes, and what major engineering projects they had on, and when they had really small groups at Overwinter and big groups where they were doing a lot of construction work as well. Endlessly fascinating to see how those people have changed. And then you start noticing there's a familiar name, and then another name, and then you start seeing some people have a serious number of winters under their belt, and such an enduring connection to Scott Base and Antarctica, New Zealand, and what that actually stands for. They have a passion for what they do, and that's what really shines through to me now here in winter 2020. All the people here are not here just for the job, and it's never just about the job. It's about the place, and it's about what we do, the service that we give back to Antarctica, New Zealand, and New Zealand in general, being the outpost here on the Antarctic continent. So my speech sort of wrapped up thanking everybody for that support and commitment that they did. The fact that their families had sort of waved them off, maybe a tear in the eye to come down here, but to wishing them well for that experience. So I'd like to raise a toast then for all those past parties, because we're standing on their shoulders and the hard work that they've done and given us this remarkable base to enjoy for winter 2020. And we are thoroughly enjoying ourselves, and hopefully we're upholding all the grand traditions that they've laid down for us. So my toast to past parties. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Rory. Just before I hand back to Georgia to wrap up for the evening, I'd just like to share with everybody the midwinter photo for this year's team that you sent me to share. So
Okay.
Hopefully everybody can see that now. This is the team for this year. Obviously you can see Rory there.
Yes, I recognize those people.
And it looks like a Bryan State special sled that you're all sitting on as well.
Yes, it's a lovely Nansen A1 sledge. It's got a great patina of use, obviously, over the years. It's a wonderful piece of craftsmanship.
Thank you, and I'll just hand back to Georgia now.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, a massive thank you to everybody that's come along tonight, that's listening and has been a part of the entertainment or the courses for the evening's meal. Ambassador Marcelli and Brown and Forsyth, thank you, yeah, a lot for giving up your evening to join us tonight. And Rory for coming along from so far away, and it's so glad that you guys have managed to update the Wi-Fi and join us on Zoom instead of the regular kind of over the phone call. And thank you to the chairs of the other branches and to Natalie for supporting me and organising this, and Sarah for giving us a kind of beginning to the meal in regards to Antarctica and New Zealand. So I think we'll we'll finish there. And if anyone's got anything left in their glass, cheers. Thank you so much, everyone.